Hey guys, it's Amy at Zoe Beck, and this is my July wrap-up part 2. My first wrap-up I did of the Booktube-a-thon stuff, so that I'll have linked down below if you haven't seen that. And I just thought I'd talk about the first 4 books I read in the month, which were from July 1st to the 23rd. And as I said, I didn't read a huge amount this month. I did still meet my average, or my goal of it. I like to read on average 50 pages a day, so it worked out to about 64 pages a day for the whole month. So I think I did pretty well. I didn't read much over, almost 2,000 pages overall, so it's like a 2/3 as much as I read last month. I did really well last month, so I kind of had to take the hit, but I read so much last month that of course I wasn't going to meet it again 2 months in a row. That would be kind of unusual. So I still did pretty good. I have 4 more books to talk about. So I mean, overall, I read 9 things. So I think that's still pretty good. So anyway, so the first book I read this month was for my sci-fi book club, which was Too Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer. And this book I bought right before we voted on what we were going to read for July back in like March. And I bought it like that week before or whatever. So of course I voted for it because I was like, oh, I own that already. Good. Then I can read it. And what do? I wait till the week before we're going to have the meeting for me to read it. And it's 450 pages. So I had to kind of make myself read it, which is not my favorite way to read books that I'm anticipating to read. So it probably was not my best move. But overall, I'm really glad I read this. This is a very different book from what I thought I was getting. I'm not saying that I was misled or anything. It was it just was a lot more into political and religious things that I was not planning on. So it's like utopian society sort of Earth about I think it's like 300 years in the future. I think that's about what it is. And it was very interesting because the world is divided into hives, and these hives, and that's kind of their term for it, they control, like, everybody belongs to usually one, or they're not in either. If they're not in a hive, there's another term for it. I just forgot what it was, but they have different rules that they follow, and all the hives have their specialties. Like some of them deal mostly with like land, and others deal with a lot of consumer products, and some in technology. And one of them actually like helps run, like they have cars that are like can get around the world in a couple hours. It's pretty cool. Anyway, it's their transportation. People use it all the time, and it's they're not driving it; they just get transportation. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so there's a lot of cool futuristic stuff in this. Again, this was really weird because it's like a history of something that's going to happen. And the writer of this is the narrator of the. Well, I would say he was a protagonist pretty much because he was in almost the whole thing. There's only a few little spots where he had somebody else narrate. And his name was Mycroft Canner, and he is a criminal who is forced for his parole in order to do anything that they make them do all this stuff, or do anything from picking up garbage to if he gets called on by some high political figure to help solve some problems, or some mathematical equations and statistics. The guy is really smart. Anyway, which is a little unusual from the very beginning. So I think I don't think I'm giving it away by saying that it was a very strange book to be told by this criminal, so you kind of knew not to trust everything he said, but it still was really good. You still wanted to go along with him, even though you didn't know what his crime was until much later in the book. And then, of course, I think that was well done anyway, even though I kind of had a hint. I kind of figured out some of this stuff, so I wasn't too surprised. But I think a lot of people that were in my group were surprised, so I think it's still good. This was a really hard read to read really fast. I think it's, again, another one that I would say don't read super fast. Like, take the time to catch all the hints. I think there's so much in here that I wasn't expecting. Because, again, the political stuff got to be very involved in the end of this book. And I know it's going to go on to the next book because it's a really big deal, that the things that start in this book and go into that one. I was intrigued by the storyline of the kid who can make inanimate objects come to life. And it starts out with that, and then you don't get a whole lot of that, and that's what surprised me about the book, is I wanted more of that. And I'm figuring we're going to get more in the next book, or I think there's a couple books. I mean, there's only one more book out right now, but I think there's a couple more might be coming out later. So it's definitely a series, but I did like this. I'm still on the fence if I want to continue right now, because again, I did read it pretty fast, so I'm not sure if I caught everything. I'm not sure I want to reread it again. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I do have the second one from the library right now, so I haven't decided if I'm going to read it. I might give it a shot and see if I fall back into it, because again, I did finish this in the first week of July, so I haven't quite decided, because I didn't take it when I went on vacation, so we'll see. But I gave it a 4. It barely made a 4, because there were some points where it was hard to get through, but I think the ending pushed me towards that, and I thought it still deserved a 4. It wasn't fantastic, but it was definitely thought-provoking, and I enjoyed it. The next book I read is going to be kind of a little funny story. So it's called Many Rivers to Cross by Steve Frazee, I think it is. This book was first published in 1955, and my dad purchased a copy of this back when he was a kid, at a mercantile store or something, and he brought it home and was going to read it, and he had to go to bed, and his dad, my grandfather, got a hold of it, and my grandfather stayed up all night reading it. So it's kind of funny. Anyway, it looks kind of funny. It's a frontier book. Definitely not politically correct about anything about Native Americans in here, please. It's a frontier book, and it's written in the 50s. It's not going to be. But it was a cute story. Again, it was really short and fast. The characters were funny. Bushrod Gentry is the name of the character, the main character, and he is like, I'm free, I'm gonna just trap and go through the frontier, and I'm gonna go north towards the Ohio Valley, and I don't need to stay here in Kentucky and everything. And he meets a young woman called Stewie, and it's short for something, but I can't remember it's a funny name. Anyway, I can't remember what it was short for. I don't know, it didn't make sense to me when it was like Elizabeth or something. It was like, that doesn't make sense. But anyway, he meets this girl in the woods, and he'd just been injured because he'd been in a fight with some Native Americans. Of course, they say certain Indians in here. And she takes him back to the settlement where she lives. And so she pretty much falls for him right away, and finds he's the one she wants to marry to get her out of what she was supposed to get married to somebody else. And it kind of spirals from there for Bushrod, because he gets kind of hoodwinked, and several things and fights break out between him and the guy she was supposed to marry, and then she lies about something that happens, and so he runs off and she follows, and it's actually really funny. The best part was the end. It actually wrapped up really good, and there was a lot of action in it, so the ending was fantastic. But it's still, I laughed all the way through this because it was so ridiculous. These people with him trying to run away from this girl, and she's chasing after him because she's sure he's the one. And of course, it was a good book. I thought it was funny, and it's funny that my dad got this. He had been looking for it for years and never found a used bookstore. So he asked my brother to look for it online, and my brother found it on eBay. So after my dad reread it and he still liked it, he gave it to me to read, and I was kind of like, well, okay, I'll read it. And it took me a couple months to actually sit down and do it, but it was so cute, and I'm glad I read that. So another book that somebody recommended to me to read is actually my boss. He said that we were talking about books, and he goes, oh, this is one of my favorite books. And so I said, okay, well, I got it from the library, and it's Peter and Max by Bill Willingham. I don't know if you can see that. Anyway, it's a novelization, or a novel that's based within the Fables graphic novel world. So I've read a few of the graphic novels. I did not finish it. It's still on my list of ones I want to finish. I just haven't got to it. I kind of packed it away when I moved at one point, and then it was in boxes for 2 years. So I just personally just found it a little while ago when I finally got my bookshelves all set up. But so he told me to read this, and I thought, okay, well, I've read some of the fables, it's no big deal. So this is a retelling of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, and it was really interesting in the way that he wove in the fables world and the graphic novels in this novel with the Pied Piper and its legend, and twisted it and things, because it's Peter Piper and his brother Max, and it has to do with like flutes and the family heirloom, and then one brother is angry at the other brother, and one kind of goes off the handle, actually, off the rails. It was okay, like it wasn't like spectacular. I did give it a 3 because it was just enough world building in it to twist, the tale, that I liked it enough to say, okay, that was enjoyable. There were parts I didn't like. I mean, there's some things that I was like, why didn't you tell us that? Or like, there are blanks in the story. Like, I would have said, what happened to this person? What happened to this thing? What happened after this? It was like, it kind of jumped a little bit. So in a way, I felt it was almost not done. Like, there were parts missing. But I liked the way it ended. I liked the way it all got resolved. Most of the things, again, as I said, there was a couple threads that I was not happy that I never knew what happened. But overall, as I said, I read it because my boss said, oh, it's one of my favorite books. And I'm not sure why it is. He hadn't read the Fables graphic novels, so I don't know how he found that book and why he read it and why he enjoyed it so much. I'm afraid to ask him, actually. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, I'm sure it was, as I said, I'm sure people liked it. I just was not my favorite. So, but I read it and it's done. So, and then the fourth thing I read was, Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, or actually the Peter and Wendy story. So, I read this book because I got this book, A Lost Boy, by Christina Henry, and it's based off of the Peter Pan story, and she twists it and turns it into something, else. So I go, well, I don't really know the Peter Pan story. I've watched the Disney cartoon a couple times, but it was never my favorite, and we never owned it. And as growing up, and then I just didn't remember a whole lot. Like, I remember certain scenes, but not a lot. And I thought, oh well, I'll read the original so I know what she's twisting and turning, because again, she did that really well with the Alice in Wonderland, and Through the Looking Glass with her stories Alice and the Red Queen. So I got Peter Pan from the library, and let's just say I did not enjoy it. I actually want to say I hated it. Now, saying that, I don't see why people would want that or read this to their kids. I found the narrator very irritating, and it could be timing of what do I want to say, when it was written. Can't remember actually the year it was written. It was, early 1900s. And there's something about the way it was written. The narrator, of course, just drove me crazy, because he would first give away things, and then he would say a few mean things about some of the characters, and then other things were just kind of, lightly brushed off, and it was no big deal. Cat, no, right now. Sorry. Not right now. And, no, I know. I'm so mean. Anyway, so, but I hated the narrator, first off. I mean, that was the narration was just drove me crazy. The narrator was just intrusive. I hated Peter Pan. I know he's supposed to be cocky, and he has this, like, short-term memory issue where he doesn't remember what he did just a couple minutes ago, and everything is about him. I didn't like that so much, and I didn't like some of the things he did either, and again, it wasn't all cruel, but it came out kind of cruel. And then there's Tinkerbell. Could somebody just shoot Tinkerbell and be done? I mean, I'm sorry, but even, I don't know how to explain it. I didn't like Tinkerbell at all. Like, I wanted to hurt that little fairy, because she's a little jerk to Wendy, and I'm like, that's just ridiculous. And I just, pretty much, I'm still like, how's this a kid's story? Anyway, I could probably go on. Anyway, so I did not like Peter Pan. So I'm going to read Lost Boy and see if that was worth it to read Peter Pan in order to understand that story. I don't know. Right now, I'm really thinking it's not. I did not enjoy Peter Pan at all. But it's another classic checked off my list that I've read. So at least I have that, right? So anyway, so that's what I read in July. Again, it's not, I didn't read a huge amount, but I read quite a couple of books. So yeah, well. So hey, did you read anything interesting? Did you read any of these or have read any of these and want to talk about them? And what do you think about Peter Pan? I mean, like the original story, like not the Disney version or the retellings from later on in his life. I'm talking like the story. I don't understand how people like it, but maybe it's just, again, it could be just me. It was never my favorite story, so maybe I just didn't want to like it, but I don't think that's it. I really think I went into it thinking, oh, it'll just be a cool story, and it wasn't. Anyway, I'll see you later. Bye.